As a cardiologist, I've sat across from hundreds of patients who said the same thing the morning before their stroke. I felt completely fine. And 9 times out of 10, when we pull their numbers, their blood pressure has been silently climbing for months, sometimes years, without a single obvious symptom. But here's what almost nobody tells you about high blood pressure after 60. Medication isn't the only answer, and in many cases, it isn't even the first answer. There is a category of compounds, natural, ancient, and increasingly backed by rigorous clinical research, that your arteries respond to within hours. Not weeks, not months, hours. They don't require a prescription, they don't cost a fortune, and most of them have been sitting in tea aisles and kitchen cupboards for centuries, used by cultures with some of the lowest rates of cardiovascular disease on Earth. Today, I'm going to walk you through 7 of them. I'm going to tell you which teas they come from, exactly how they work inside your blood vessels, and, critically, how to use them correctly so you get the full benefit. Because preparation method matters more than most people realize. Stay with me through all 7, because number 5 genuinely surprised me, and I've been practicing cardiology for over 2 decades. And if you're over 60, I want you to pay very close attention to numbers 3 and 7. What's happening in your arteries right now, as you watch this, is something most doctors don't take enough time to explain. We're going to change that today. If this kind of research-backed, practical health information is what you're looking for, hit subscribe right now. This channel exists for people who want real answers, not just prescriptions. Now, let's talk about what's happening inside your arteries, and exactly what these 7 T's do about it. Section 1. Why blood pressure becomes so dangerous after 60, and why teas can actually help. Before we get to the teas, I need you to understand one thing, because it will make every single recommendation I give you far more powerful. Blood pressure is not just a number. It is a measurement of force, the force your blood exerts against the walls of your arteries with every single heartbeat. When that force is too high, for too long, those arterial walls begin to suffer. They stiffen, they narrow, they become vulnerable to the kind of dangerous plaques that lead to heart attack and stroke. After 60, this process accelerates for a very specific biological reason. The inner lining of your arteries, a single-cell thick layer called the endothelium, begins to produce less of a molecule called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is, quite literally, your body's natural blood pressure medication. It signals the smooth muscle surrounding your arteries to relax, allowing blood to flow freely at lower pressure. Less nitric oxide means stiffer, narrower arteries. Stiffer, narrower arteries means higher pressure. Higher pressure means more damage. It is a cycle, and after 60, most people are already caught inside it without knowing. Now here's the critical point. Many of the bioactive compounds found in medicinal teas, polyphenols, flavonoids, catechins, anthocyanins, work directly on the endothelium. They stimulate nitric oxide production. They reduce arterial inflammation. They relax vascular smooth muscle. This is not folk medicine. This is biochemistry. A landmark review published in the British Journal of Nutrition, analyzing 25 randomized controlled trials involving over 1,400 participants, found that regular tea consumption was associated with a statistically significant reduction in both systolic and diastolic blood pressure, with effects appearing as early as 12 hours after consumption. 12 hours. One night. That's where the word overnight comes from, and it's earned. Not every tea works for every person, but the mechanism is real, the research is solid, and the 7 I'm about to share with you represent the strongest evidence we currently have. Let's begin. Section 2. Teas 1, 2, and 3. Tea number 1. Hibiscus tea. If I could prescribe only one tea to every patient over 60 with elevated blood pressure, it would be this one. Hibiscus sabdarifera, the deep crimson plant whose dried calyces steep into a tart, ruby-red tea, contains some of the highest concentrations of anthocyanins found in any plant on Earth. These are the same pigment compounds that make blueberries blue and red wine red. But hibiscus contains them in quantities that blueberries can't come close to matching. Here's what they do. Anthocyanins are potent inhibitors of angiotensin-converting enzyme. what doctors call ACE. If you've ever been prescribed an ACE inhibitor for blood pressure, you're already familiar with the mechanism. These pharmaceutical drugs work by blocking the enzyme that triggers arterial constriction. Hibiscus anthocyanins do something remarkably similar, through a natural pathway. A study from Tufts University, one of the most rigorous of its kind, followed 65 adults with pre-hypertension or mild hypertension for 6 weeks. The hibiscus group saw their systolic blood pressure drop by an average of 7.2 points. That is a clinically meaningful reduction. For some patients, that's the difference between needing medication and not needing it. How to prepare it correctly. Steep 2 to 3 grams of dried hibiscus, roughly 2 heaping teaspoons, in 8 ounces of water at just below boiling for 6 to 8 minutes. Not 2 minutes, not 10 minutes, 6 to 8. Steeping too briefly extracts too little of the active compounds. Steeping too long introduces bitter tannins that many people find unpleasant and may actually reduce absorption. Drink 1 cup in the morning and 1 in the evening. Do not add sugar. It counteracts the cardiovascular benefit. A small amount of honey is fine. One important caution. If you're already on ACE inhibitors, speak to your doctor before adding significant amounts of hibiscus. The additive effect can sometimes lower pressure too far. Tea number 2. Green tea. This one you've heard of, but I'm willing to bet you haven't heard the specific mechanism, and that mechanism is what makes it worth discussing separately from the general "green tea is healthy" noise. Green tea is uniquely rich in a catechin called epigallocatechin gallate, better known as EGCG. EGCG does something remarkable in the endothelium. It activates an enzyme called eNOS, endothelial nitric oxide synthase. This is the enzyme responsible for manufacturing nitric oxide in your arterial walls. Remember what I said earlier about nitric oxide? About how its production declines after 60, and how that decline directly contributes to rising blood pressure. EGCG essentially signals your body to make more of it. A meta-analysis published in Scientific Reports in 2020, examining 24 randomized controlled trials with nearly 1,700 participants, found that green tea consumption produced an average reduction of 1.98 millimeters of mercury in systolic and 1.92 millimeters of mercury in diastolic pressure. Those numbers sound modest, but researchers note that even a 2-point sustained reduction in systolic pressure corresponds to a roughly 10% decrease in stroke risk over time. How to prepare it correctly. Use water at 160 to 175 degrees Fahrenheit, not boiling. Boiling water degrades EGCG significantly. Steep for 2 to 3 minutes only. 2 cups per day is the sweet spot most research supports. Green tea contains caffeine, so if you're sensitive, limit your second cup to before 2 p.m. Tea number 3, olive leaf tea. This is the one most people over 60 have never tried, and it may be the most powerful for arterial stiffness specifically. Olive leaf contains a compound called oleuropein. For decades, oleuropein was studied primarily for its antibacterial and antiviral properties. But in the last 15 years, cardiovascular researchers have become increasingly interested in something else it does. It directly reduces the activity of calcium channels in vascular smooth muscle. Calcium channel blockers are, in fact, a major class of prescription blood pressure medication. They work by reducing calcium-driven muscle contractions in arterial walls, allowing those walls to relax and widen. Oleuropein works through a similar channel, naturally. A double-blind study published in the journal Phytomedicine, conducted by European researchers over 8 weeks with 232 subjects with stage 1 hypertension, found that olive leaf extract reduced systolic pressure by an average of 11.5 points and diastolic by 4.8 points. Those are numbers that rival many first-line pharmaceutical interventions. How to prepare it correctly. Use dried olive leaves, available in most health stores, steeped for 10 minutes in near boiling water. The taste is mild, slightly bitter, herbaceous. 1 to 2 cups per day. Because of the calcium channel interaction, again, if you're on calcium channel blockers, discuss with your physician before using this consistently. Section 3. Teas 4 and 5. and a story that changed how I prescribe. Before I give you tea number 4, I want to tell you about a patient of mine. I'll call him Raymond Chen, a 67-year-old retired engineer from Portland who came to see me 2 years ago with a systolic reading that had been hovering between 148 and 156 for the better part of a year. Raymond was not a man who wanted to be on medication. He'd watched his father take blood pressure pills for 30 years, gain weight, feel foggy, and eventually have a stroke anyway. He was terrified of that path. So we made a deal. I gave him 90 days, with monthly monitoring, to see what lifestyle and dietary modifications could do. One of the things I recommended was a structured 2T protocol using the teas I'm sharing with you today. At his 90-day check-in, Raymond's systolic had dropped to 134. Not perfect, but in the safe zone and dropping. His words to me were, "I feel like my arteries finally have some room." I share Raymond's story, not as a promise that tea will replace medication for you. It may not, and if your physician has prescribed medication, please continue taking it, but as evidence that these compounds are not folklore. They produce measurable changes in real people. Now, teas 4 and 5. Tea number 4, lemon balm tea. High blood pressure is not always a plumbing problem. Sometimes it's a nervous system problem. When your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight system, is chronically overactivated, it keeps your heart rate elevated and your arteries in a state of mild constriction around the clock. In people over 60 who experience chronic stress, poor sleep or anxiety, this sympathetic overdrive is often a major hidden driver of elevated readings. Lemon balm, Melissa officinalis, contains rosmarinic acid, a compound that modulates the stress response by inhibiting GABA transaminase, the enzyme that breaks down your brain's primary calming neurotransmitter. More GABA means a quieter nervous system. A quieter nervous system means lower baseline vascular tension. A study from the University of Northumbria found that participants who consumed lemon balm extract showed significantly reduced stress reactivity and a measurable drop in heart rate during stress challenges. Because nighttime sympathetic activation is one of the most significant drivers of morning blood pressure spikes, the dangerous ones, drinking lemon balm tea in the evening specifically addresses the overnight mechanism. How to prepare it. 1 tablespoon of dried lemon balm, steeped for 7 minutes in hot, not boiling, water. Drink 30 to 60 minutes before bed. The effect is gentle and cumulative. Most people also notice improved sleep quality within the first week, which itself has a measurable blood pressure benefit. Tea number 5, beet leaf tea. I told you this one surprised me. Here's why. When most people think about beets and blood pressure, they think about beetroot juice, which has an impressive body of research behind it, largely due to its high nitrate content. Dietary nitrates are converted in the body to nitric oxide, reinforcing the same pathway I described earlier. What most cardiologists, including myself until a few years ago, didn't fully appreciate is that the leaves of the beet plant contain even higher nitrate concentrations than the root, plus a flavonoid called betanin that provides additional anti-inflammatory effects on the arterial endothelium. Beet leaf tea is made by steeping dried beet greens, something that is criminally underutilized in Western health practice. A 2022 study in the Journal of Nutrition found that nitrate-rich leafy greens produced a 4.4 millimeter mercury reduction in systolic pressure after a single serving in hypertensive adults. Effects measurable within 2.5 hours of consumption. How to prepare it. Dried beet leaves steeped for 8 to 10 minutes in very hot water. The taste is earthy, similar to spinach tea, if you can imagine that. A squeeze of lemon significantly brightens the flavor and actually improves nitrate absorption. 1 cup per day is sufficient. Section 4. Teas 6 and 7, the final 2, and how to build your protocol. My friends, before we get to the final 2 teas, which are the ones most specifically studied for long-term arterial protection, please take just 1 second to hit the like button on this video. It costs you nothing, and it tells the platform to share this information with other people over 60 who need it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do that now. Everything I share here is free, always. Now, numbers 6 and 7. Tea number 6, Passion flower tea. Passion flower, Passiflora incarnata, operates through a mechanism very similar to lemon balm, GABAergic calming of the nervous system, but with an additional dimension that makes it uniquely valuable for blood pressure management in older adults. Research from the Phytotherapy Research Journal found that passion flower supplementation not only reduced anxiety scores significantly, but also demonstrated direct, mild vasodilatory effects, meaning it gently encourages blood vessels to widen through a pathway independent of the nervous system. This dual action, calming the nervous system and directly relaxing blood vessel walls, makes it particularly effective when taken in the evening for overnight blood pressure regulation. A small but well-designed clinical trial conducted in Iran with 41 surgery patients found that passion flower extract produced a significant reduction in both anxiety and blood pressure metrics compared to placebo, effects that appeared within 90 minutes of administration. How to prepare it? 1 teaspoon of dried passion flower, steeped 10 minutes, strained. Best consumed in the evening. Note: passion flower has mild sedative properties. This is generally a benefit for blood pressure regulation during sleep, but do not drive or operate heavy machinery after consuming a strong preparation. Tea number 7, Gynostemma tea. And here we are, tea number 7, the one I specifically told you to pay close attention to if you are over 60. Gynostemma pentaphyllum is a climbing herb native to South and East Asia. It has been used in traditional Chinese medicine for centuries under the name jiaogulan, sometimes called the herb of immortality, in certain regions of southern China, where the population has historically shown exceptional longevity. Western science spent decades dismissing this plant. Then researchers started studying it seriously and found something that stopped them cold. Gynostemma contains over 100 distinct saponin compounds. Several of these, particularly the gypenicides, have been found to stimulate the production of adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase, or AMPK. AMPK is sometimes called the body's master metabolic switch. One of its functions is to upregulate nitric oxide production in the endothelium. But what's particularly remarkable for people over 60 is what a study from China's Academy of Chinese Medical Sciences found when they tracked 223 patients with mild to moderate hypertension over 4 months. The group taking Gynostemma extract showed not only a significant reduction in blood pressure, systolic by an average of 8.4 points, but also meaningful improvements in arterial elasticity. Not just lower pressure, more flexible arteries. After 60, arterial stiffness is often the underlying driver that makes blood pressure so hard to control. Medications can lower your numbers while your arteries continue to stiffen. Gynostemma appears to address the stiffness itself. How to prepare it? Gynostemma tea is widely available in Asian grocery stores and online. Steep 1 to 2 teaspoons of dried leaves for 5 to 7 minutes. The flavor is mildly sweet and grassy, one of the more pleasant teas on this list. 2 cups per day is the amount most studies used. Section 5. Your complete overnight protocol and Raymond's return. Now let me bring this together for you in a practical, structured way. You don't need to drink all 7 teas every day. That would be both impractical and unnecessary. What you need is a strategic rotation that maximizes different mechanisms throughout the day. Here is the protocol I recommend, and the one I designed specifically for Raymond Chen, whose story I shared with you earlier. Morning protocol. Choose one. Hibiscus or green tea, taken within 30 minutes of waking. These address daytime vascular function, nitric oxide production, and early morning blood pressure spikes. Midday protocol. Optional, choose one. Beet leaf tea or Gynostemma, with or after lunch. These reinforce nitric oxide pathways and support arterial elasticity through the afternoon hours. Evening protocol. Choose one or combine. Lemon balm, passion flower, or olive leaf tea. Taken 60 to 90 minutes before bed. These calm the nervous system, reduce nighttime sympathetic activation, and protect arterial walls during sleep, when blood pressure dysregulation does much of its quiet damage. Raymond followed a version of this protocol: hibiscus in the morning, Gynostemma midday, and lemon balm before sleep, combined with modest dietary changes. At 6 months, his systolic had fallen to 129. His diastolic was 78. He sent me a message that said simply, "I walked 4 miles this morning, first time in 3 years." His arteries finally had room. Here's what I want you to do right now, today. Pick just one tea from the morning list and one from the evening list. Start there. Drink them consistently for 2 weeks. Then take your blood pressure reading, ideally at the same time of day, twice, and average the numbers. And compare it to where you are today. Leave your starting blood pressure in the comments below. Come back in 2 weeks and share your results. I read every single one. The community we're building here, the conversations happening in these comments, they matter. If you know someone over 60 who is quietly struggling with their numbers, who feels overwhelmed by medication side effects, or who simply doesn't know there are other options, share this video with them. That single act might change the direction of their health. Your heart has carried you this far. It has beaten, without a single request for appreciation, for every year of your life. These 7 T's are not magic. They are tools, ancient tools, newly understood, for giving that faithful organ the support it was always designed to have. Subscribe to the channel. New research, new protocols, real answers, every week. And take care of those arteries. You're going to need them for a long time yet.